we've done some work with the long target, so now I was going to work on the short target. So I chose the long target originally because I wanted to keep him away from me more and have more space, and now he's gotten that, and now we're going to work with the short target, and it kind of depends on what you want to do, how far or close you want your horse to be, but ideally this everything else is going to be the same. So I'll ask him to walk on, he'll follow the target, and that's pretty much it. I'm going to do a bit more walking because this target is short. So like with the long target, I just kind of stood in the middle and had him follow it around and then had him follow around me on cue. This one I'm going to be walking forward and around with him, kind of at his head, like equal to his head, and I'll be kind of facing forward a little bit. But that's pretty much the main difference. Everything else is going to stay the same. I'll ask him to walk on, I'll present the target, and then we'll go. And he has a nice trot transition. So I find it's a little bit easier for me to work on transitions and stuff with the shorter target than it is the longer one, just because there's less for me to hold on to. So I like doing those transitions with that, but that looks really nice. I like how relaxed he is getting into it. And if you go back and watch his transitions from when I was like using negative reinforcement and lunging him on like a lunge line with a whip, you can see the difference. It's not a huge difference, but you can tell he's a lot less worried. There's a lot less tension in his body. So I do like that. And I like how eager he is to go forward and follow it. And he's not pinning his ears. He's not worried about it. He's just happy to follow it. He has a nice change of direction. And I did get a little too focused here on just going forward. Again, if you're training this, make sure your horse can stop and stand just as evenly as he can go forward into a walk, trot, or canter. So like here I'm working on a little bit more. I clicked him for standing still. But even while I was just doing those first couple of minutes, I should have worked on doing some standstill there because I think he's anticipating here and going off, and I didn't ask him to. So it's important that you don't have all those behaviors that you don't want creep in. So being prepared and having him ready to do stuff and balancing out those behaviors is really important. So because here I'm going to ask him to go forward, but if I want him to just stand still, I'll just not present the target yet. It'll be right after he's gone forward or before I ask him to go forward. I'll click and feed, and then I'll click and feed, and I'll click and feed, and then I'll add 1 second, click and feed, and I'll do that 3 times, and then I'll do 2 seconds, and so on and so on. And in between those sets of adding time for him staying still, I'll be asking him to go forward. So, but I want to just even out the amount of time I spend standing still versus asking him to go forward. And again, depending on your horse. If your horse is really forward, you might have to spend half or 75% of your time standing, and then vice versa with horse that doesn't have a lot of forward movement. So again, that's probably the key to this lesson. Well, one of the keys to that lesson is balancing it out, rewarding a lot for your horse standing still, because then you'll just get a horse that goes, and doesn't listen to your cues. So the other key to this lesson is to click him while he's going forward to the target, and not just touching it, because the horse can get really frustrated that he can't is unable to actually catch up to it, and then that's where you get the ear pinning and he gets the grumpy faces and he can't get to it, and you have that frustration there. So we don't want that. But he's working quite nicely. I ask him to trot. I just give him my voice, my vocal cue, which is going to be for him is going to be, and then trot, and then I will start walking a little bit faster, and I'll bring that target forward a little bit quicker. And you can see that on that last time I asked him to go forward, and then he gets right into the trot, so that works out really well. So then I don't have to chase him or pressure him in any way. So now he's anticipating and going off on his own. So again, should have worked more on balancing that behavior, especially after asking for that forward or upward transition into the trot. So I should just balance that out a little bit more. So because what you can happen here is I'm ignoring it and waiting for him to stop and stand. So a couple things can happen. I'm definitely I could be adding in a behavior I don't want. So I'm rewarding him for standing still, but he already had walked a lap before, so he might think that's part of it and he should walk and then stand. And I could have a very frustrated horse for just waiting for him to give me another behavior. He's frustrated. He doesn't know what I want. So he's like, well, going forward gives me rewards, so I'm going to keep going forward, and your horse can get really frustrated. So we don't want either of those things happening. So it's going to be a lot of rewarding in the beginning. So I'll click and reward him for going forward, and then I'll either get, like, after he's like just about done chewing, I will go ahead and ask him to go forward, or I will reward him for standing still based on where we're at in training that. So if he can stand still for 5 seconds, then that's great. If it's less or more, I would start from there, wherever you're working at that point. So, and then if you're working on, if you did some upward transitions and rewarded those, I would decrease the amount of time that your horse is standing still. So like we did a trot transition, and even if, so let's say Castor's great at standing still and waiting for 10 seconds, let's at least cut that time in half, maybe only count to 3, and then click and reward him, because he's going to be thinking going forward, he did that upward transition, so I want to make sure he's nice and balanced and that I can do that nice stand halt behavior. So, but I love the trot transitions, that looks great, and I really wanted to retrain the trot and the canter transitions, which I'll be working on the canter a little bit later, because he's got a little bit of tension in there from what I was doing before with him, but we can get that figured out.